Okay, so just to remind you that the second problem set is due on Wednesday at 1 o'clock, so class time. Because of the way Wiley Plus works, what I'll probably end up doing is at 1 o'clock I will extend the due date for at least 4 days for people who are late, but it really is due Wednesday at 1 o'clock. It's about rotation, it's all sorts of stuff that we've done already. So I'm actually getting ahead of the problem set now, which is fine. What else? Any issues, questions you have about the course in general? So where I left off last time was with this question, and we're looking at wheels, and what's the purpose of wheels? Well, it's all about friction, trying to control friction. It turns out it's not eliminating friction altogether. You don't actually want to drive a car with no friction because you can't start, stop, or turn. You need friction to propel yourself, to brake, and to make turns. The forces from the ground are essential, otherwise you go inertial, straight and true. So we tried to learn how to work with it. And where I finish off was with this observation that if I get the wagon, years ago it was a box, I still call it a box. If I get it moving and then let it encounter the table, it skids to a stop. And the peculiar thing about that motion, skidding to a stop, is that while the table does negative work on the box, on the wagon, pretty clearly it's pushing the wagon to your left as the wagon is moving to your right. That's negative work. It's sucking the energy out of the wagon, and you can see that because the wagon slows down. It's losing kinetic energy. But the wagon doesn't seem to do any work on the table. So energy seems to just be disappearing. And that should be troubling. And if you understand it well enough, it should be troubling. Like, well, the wagon had energy taken out of it, but it didn't give any to the surface. Where to go? And where it went is it's ground up. I mean, this is the way I think of it. It's like through a meat grinder. The energy is still there. It's been just shattered into little pieces and distributed randomly. It's not quite the right word. Statistically, among all the atoms and molecules that comprise the bottom surface of the wagon and the top surface of the table. Lots of little microscopic collisions occurred there, and a little dose of energy on this one, a little dose of energy in that one. It's all chopped up. And that chopped up energy, distributed statistically among all the particles, is what I call thermal energy. It's the energy associated with temperature. The details of the world of temperature are for this fall course. But the basic idea is that thermal energy is same old energy. It's just energy. And it's little pieces of it, though. So that each individual atom, for example, might be moving a little bit, so it's got some kinetic energy. And it might be pushing against its neighbor. So they're exerting forces on each other. And that's a little bit of potential energy, chemical potential, associated with the two atoms being too close or too far apart or something where they're storing a little bit of energy. And so thermal energy is lots of those little pieces, millions, billions, 10 to the 23rd, if you remember Avogadro's number, these enormous numbers of particles all sharing their own little doses of energy. And once that's happened, once the energy has gone from something orderly, like the kinetic energy of the entire wagon, into the little statistical motions of all the little particles, 10 to the 23rd of them or something like that, you can't get it back into ordered form. You can't reassemble all those little bits and pieces of energy and have them all get together and do something interesting, like get the wagon moving again. It won't happen. Not because it's impossible, not because the laws of motion prevent it from happening, but because it's so statistically unlikely, you'll never, ever, ever see it happen. It's beyond hopelessly unlikely. Winning the lottery 5 times in a row is amazingly likely compared to how unlikely it is for those guys to get together. And just sort of to show you that idea, where did the docket camera? If I've done this right, you should be looking down on, ta-da! Well, yeah, there it is. 2 collections of beads, some purple ones and some white ones, on opposite sides of the dish. Now, this is a very orderly arrangement of beads, just as This is an orderly when it was moving, was an orderly arrangement of energy. It's all, the whole object as a whole is moving, carrying all its energy with it. That's orderly. This is orderly as well. If I let randomness come in, which I do very simply by looking away and stirring, and I'm sure when I get away, it's going to be all purple on the right and white on the left. Oh, no, not. Okay, I'll try again. Oops, still not. You know, if I only had 2 beads, I could have them, 2 beads, obviously I can get them separate easily. 4, 6, or 8 beads, once in a while I get them all the purple on one side, all the white on the other. But with this many beads, the chances of them all showing up on one side and all showing them up on the other becomes just fantastically small. And there are only 200 beads there or something like that. Not anything close to the number of particles there are on the bottom of that wagon or the top of the table. So once you have sort of distributed energy randomly, you can't get it assembled back again for statistical reasons. It's just too unlikely. And this is equivalent to your sock drawer. You got 2 colors of socks because you've got some sort of obsessive thing, right? So all your socks are orange and green. And you put them in the drawer, just take them out of the dryer, put in the drawer. And how likely is it that you can have all the orange on one side and all the green on the other? It's not going to happen. Not unless you've got only 1 or 2 pairs. So, thermal energy, it's lost its ordering, and in order to get the order back, you have to spend order from somewhere else, in effect. This is a long story for the fall course, but it is possible to reorganize these beads, but not by accident. You have to pull all the purples to one side. It's a lot of one-at-a-timey things, right? You pull all the purples over, and in doing so, you're consuming order from something else. In this case, from my breakfast cereal, I'm using up, that was an orderly thing too, and I use up that order and turn it into burn stuff, carbon dioxide and water, in exchange for reordering those beads. And once you've created disorder, you can't uncreate it. You can only export it. You can make disorder somewhere else. And that's the story of thermodynamics, actually. Is this okay so far? Just the basic idea that grinding up energy in lots of little pieces is a one-way street. You can't undo it. Not without creating disorder somewhere else. The physical quantity that measures disorders is famous entropy. It's not energy, it's entropy, which sounds a lot like energy, but they're very different quantities. I'm not going to pursue anything about entropy this semester, but it is the measure of disorder, and the rule of thumb is it's never going down. It just keeps on accumulating more and more disorder. And that's the way of the universe. Okay? Yeah. So in a wagon, does kinetic energy change into thermal energy? Yes. It didn't lose energy. The conserved quantity is energy itself, the whole collection. All the energies together, summed together, that's total energy, and that's what's conserved. Kinetic energy itself, just a piece of energy, isn't conserved. The fact that the wagon, ball, when it leaves my hand, lots of kinetic energy, and then none. Where'd it go? Well, that's okay. Kinetic energy itself is not a conserved quantity. It's just part of the story. It's like $5 bills is not a conserved quantity. But money in general is a conserved quantity. Okay? So, in this case, the kinetic energy changed form from kinetic energy to thermal energy, which secretly is lots of little pieces of kinetic energy and potential energy. But it's all chopped up. But all the energy is still here. No energy was created or destroyed. It just got ground up into little bits. Same as if, I can do my analogies until we're all crazy. All right? And you've seen this stuff happen before. A famous demonstration of work becoming thermal energy is the fire starter kind of trick, which some years I get this to work right, and some years not. So I'm going to try with a bow wrapped around a stick to get the stick turning so fast that it starts at least to smoke. If I hopefully get some good smoke out of it. That counts. Yay. Lucky year. All right. Whew. Whew. There have been some very frustrating years where nothing happens except I get sweaty. Okay? So that was just, I was doing work, both as I shoved the bow forward and it moved forward, and as I pulled the bow backward and it moved backward. But all my work was seemingly disappearing. Where's it going? Thermal energy. All right? Well, just because I can, just I should point out this before I go into a summary of all the energies that are around. Of the two frictions that are most common, static friction, sliding friction, only sliding friction wastes energy as thermal energy. Static friction, for example, if I carry something around, if I hold this strange object that I'm going to play with shortly, some of you from 1050 know this. If I hold it like this, it's got vertical sides. My ability to support it is purely because of friction. If there were no friction, it would slip right through my fingers and crash. Because I'm not exerting any, I can't hold it up with support forces because its sides are vertical. And support forces are therefore horizontal. To hold it up and support its weight, I have to push up on it, which is parallel to its surface, so it has to be friction. If you grease this thing, I can't hold it. Are you okay with that being static friction? It is static because there's no relative movement between my hands and my fingers, the surfaces, and the blue object surfaces. So if I do something like lift the object up, I'm doing work on the blue object with the help of an upward frictional force, specifically a static frictional force, and I'm conveying energy to it. None of the energy is lost to thermal energy. Every bit of energy, of work I do into my fingers to convey to the blue object gets to the blue object. None of it goes into making heat. If I let this thing slip as part of that movement, then I've got sliding friction around. That does waste energy. Because then you get this result that we saw earlier, where one surface the surfaces do maybe some mixture of positive and negative work, but the negative dominates. In this case, it's all negative. There isn't even any positive work. If the table could move a little bit, there might be a little positive work around. But overall, the grand scheme of things, there'd be a net amount of negative work. Energy seemed to disappear. It became thermal energy. So the point of this whole harangue is static friction is not an energy waster. It doesn't cause wear. It doesn't waste energy. It just allows two surfaces to grip each other and do things. It's sliding friction that's the problem. Because sliding friction involves some amount of energy becoming thermal energy. And at the same time often producing wear, just damaging the surfaces. So when you walk carefully, you're using sliding friction. You land your foot and you push, but no skid. Land your foot, oops, sorry, I skidded. And too awkward, okay? You walk like an Egyptian, I don't know, before your time, before my time. But if you're using friction, it's only static friction. You will not wear out your shoes. You won't waste energy either. It's when you skid to a stop, whoop, and then kill yourself, that you run the risk, well, in fact, you do waste energy and wear your shoes out. So have I beaten to death the idea that sliding friction is the big problem? Hopefully. So in a car with wheels or bicycle, any wheeled vehicle, static friction is typically not the bad guy. Sliding friction is the bad guy. You want to get rid of sliding friction. You want good grip on the pavement with which to start, stop, turn, but you don't want the wheels' surfaces to be sliding across the pavement because that'll waste energy. So the two types I'll do this and then I'll come back to my review of energy. The two types of wheels that are common on vehicles of all sorts are so-called free wheels and powered wheels. let me show you how a freewheel works. And the story involves the interaction of forces and torques. Remember, forces can produce torques, and torques, turns out, can produce forces. So a freewheel is one that sits on an axle and can turn freely. It's got no connection to an engine, for example. It just can turn. And if I am the wagon, and this is my one and only wheel, if I start heading to your right, and there is no friction, the wheel will begin to skid across the pavement. You know, so the wheel is not turning, its bottom surface is staying the same, but it's moving to the right across the pavement. If it were actually touching the pavement, it would skid. Can you see it? That's skid? Ooh. And I would be leaving black marks on the table. I probably am a little bit. So what happens? Well, when the wheel is touching the pavement, it can experience static friction. It's static because every portion of wheel has its opportunity to land on the surface and then lift off the surface. It doesn't slide across the surface. It's touch and release. And you can do this with your own hand. You can just roll your little hand wheel across the other hand. Touch and release the whole time. Never skid. So the wheel doesn't skid, but it does experience static friction forces. Once it lands, if I begin to move my wagon to the right, the bottom of the wheel will skid to the right unless the table pushes back on it with static friction and causes it to begin to roll. So a freewheel tends to roll like that. And the rolling motion, which is a rotary motion, rotational motion, is produced by a torque. And where did the torque come from? It came from the fact that as the whole wagon began to move to the right, the table acted to prevent the wheel from skidding. And in doing so, it pushed the bottom of the wheel to the left to make it start rolling. So the bottom of the wheel got pushed to the left and caused it to start rotating. In fact, it caused angular acceleration. It produced a torque. So hopefully you can follow the idea. I think I went into pretty good detail in this in the figure, the video figure that's in the book, the e-book. When the wagon starts moving forward, the pavement exerts a frictional torque on the bottom of the wheel in the direction opposite the wheel's motion. And that produces a torque on the wheel and causes it to start rolling. Questions about that idea? It's got a whole lot of little parts, but you've seen it happen 1,000 times. Okay? So, for a freewheel, friction causes the wheel to begin rolling. What if the engine causes the wheel to begin rolling? That's for a powered wheel. So if instead of having the wheel free to turn on its own, the engine grabs the wheel and twists it hard, and it's going to twist it hard in this direction, from your perspective, clockwise, or according to the right-hand rule thing, away from you. Okay? It's going to twist the wheel like that. When it does that, if the wheel's touching the ground, they'll exert frictional forces on each other. The ground will again try to stop the wheel from skidding. And to do that, if the wheel's already turning like this, the pavement is going to push opposite the wheel's motion, namely to the right. To try to stop it from skidding, here, I got the wheel going, and then we touch. The pavement slowed the wheel to a stop by pushing the wheel opposite its surface's motion, namely to the right. That rightward push has two effects. One is it does prevent the wheel from going faster and faster, despite the fact the engine is twisting it. The other effect it has is, well, it's the only horizontal force on the vehicle, on my cart. And it happens to be in that direction. So it's unopposed, and it causes the whole cart to begin accelerating forward. So that's what happens when you're driving a car and you hit the gas. The powered wheels start to be turned by way of torque from the engine. And that twisting on the wheels would cause them to skid if it weren't for friction. Again, static friction, assuming you haven't gone too hard on the accelerator. That static friction force prevents the wheels from going faster and faster, but it also propels the car forward. Is that okay? So freewheels use the car's motion to get themselves to roll. Powered wheels use the twist of the engine and that to get them rolling. They use that then to propel the car, to drive it forward. You know, again, but in both cases, they're static friction. Questions about that? You know, watch cars go by, watch bicycles go by. You know, try it when you're pedaling. How are you managing to propel yourself? You're summoning up I'll stick with the bicycle. You're summoning up a forward frictional force in the ground by trying to skid your wheels backward. The pavement doesn't like that. It pushes the wheel forward to stop the skid, and that propels the whole bicycle forward. All right? All right, and then parade. What I'll finish up with here in talking about wheels is the forms of energy, just because I can. So I've talked about kinetic energy. You've seen that. That's just the energy associated with motion. And remember, the conserved quantity is energy overall. So all the little variations on it are just, they can change. You can convert one into the other, but grand total, they stay conserved. So kinetic energy is the energy of moving. So far, so good. And then there are a whole bunch of potential energies where the energy is stored in the forces between or among things. And the first example we saw was gravitational potential energy, where the energy is stored in the force between the object and actually the Earth. I mean, for the only gravitational potential energies that you and I encounter on a daily basis are ones associated with the Earth. So as I lift the ball up and stretch the gravitational force between the ball and the Earth, I'm storing energy in it. As it comes back down, the energy returns. And one of my favorite examples of this is a pendulum. So this is a big, giant pendulum, just like for a pendulum clock, except it's very long. And if I let this guy swing, it does the trick of converting energy between two forms. Kinetic energy when it's moving fastest, which it does right here in the middle, when it's actually lowest. And gravitational potential energy, which it has when it's at the ends, and it's the highest. See, when it's in the middle, it's low. It's here, down low, chest height. When it goes over here, it's higher. Everybody combined with that. It's now got more gravitational potential energy than it used to. So as it swings back and forth, the energy, well, if we hit things, always tricky to avoid that. The energy is going back and forth rhythmically, which is another cool story from the fall course. It's going back and forth between, it's all gravitational now, it's all kinetic, all gravitational, all kinetic, all gravitational, all kinetic, all gravitational, back and forth. The total, the sum of gravitational plus kinetic is constant. It's just going back and forth between two forms. Okay? Which brings the classic demonstration, which I have a volunteer who believes in the conservation of energy. Probably somebody tall, about my height, give or take. Ye little faith. All right, I'll do it. So when I let go of the ball, I've invested energy into it, right? I pulled it away from center. I did work to get it here. Everybody okay with that? So it's got a certain amount of energy in it. I am not going to add any additional energy to it, as in I will not push it away from me, because that's a bad idea. So I'm going to let the energy go back and forth between two forms. I'll start over here. Ready? It's all gravitational, all kinetic, all gravitational, and if you push it, woo, you know, smash. Bad idea. The other thing that would be bad is if the pivot up there moved, like we had an earthquake, that would do it too. So, but anyway, I was safe. I wasn't worried, because I believe in conservation of energy. You okay with that? All right, the various other kinds of energy. You've got gravitational potential, elastic. You know, one example is when I'm going to do work on air by pushing it into the balloon as it moves into the balloon. The The energy is now stored in the skin of the balloon, which has been stretched. Again, forces between things. And when I let go, it has some fun and games. The other one, okay. Hey, Aunt Ethel, want some mixed nuts? Oh, yes, I would love some. Oh, a snake, right? So, it's more elastic visual energy. You had to I had this when I was a kid, not literally this one, and whenever aunts and uncles would go, woo, they do it every time, even though I did it 17 times. Right? If it was funny once, it's funny twice. You know. You'll have kids someday too, maybe. Okay, but actually, okay, I do it again. Whoa, yeah, right. The act of shoving it in there is work, right? Force in, it moves in. This is energy. I'm doing work on it. I'm storing energy in the little snake, spring snake, right? And it's in there. And I'll leave it for somebody else to release that energy. All right? What else? Magnetic. We have some magnetism. Oh, yeah. Now, you live in an era when really strong magnets are common. When I was a kid, they just didn't have magnets like this. The technology has advanced a lot. So so two pieces of they're neodymium iron boron magnets. You can get them surprisingly inexpensively, but there's a lot of energy in these. As you know to an extent already, and we'll see shortly because we're about to hit the transition to electricity and magnetism. These guys have a lot of stored, in this case, magnetostatic energy associated with the magnetic character of these guys. It was invested by somebody who pulled them apart and did work to get them apart, and I'm now going to release them by letting them get together. This one has found a metal piece in the table that it's stuck on. A couple of years ago, the department actually has these hockey puck sized guys like that, really strong. Like once you get them together, you can barely get them apart. You have to like put one on a table and shear the other one off. And there was a time when someone went in. We came in the morning, and there were the two magnets stuck together, and there were little red droplets heading off to the men's bathroom. So someone got themselves nicely pinched. I've gotten a little pinched, not like that though. Anyhow, we were doing a television show on iron for like History Channel, the history of iron. And almost everything I said ended up on the cutting room floor, except these two giant magnets sitting in two wine glasses at about this distance apart. I was pushing together, and they then leapt at each other. And it just glass everywhere. That one they couldn't resist putting in the show, but everything else, like, I don't know if I had a single word. It just got killed. Putting science on television is really hard. Nobody wants to have it because they're afraid that it's a moment at which you will change the channel. Anyhow, so magnetic energy, electric energy. So this is fun too. Science has to be fun. So what this is, and we'll see more of these kind of guys get, it's known as a capacitor. It's really two surfaces very close to each other. There are enormous surfaces inside this device. You can imagine it like a jelly roll, where you've got surface 1, surface 2, and it's rolled up. It's not quite like that, but it resembles that. And therefore it has fantastic surface, and we can put positive charge on one surface and negative charge on the other. Remember, opposites attract. If you put positive and negative charge very near each other, they'll hang out like that, but they would much rather actually get together because they can get even closer. So I am going to accumulate a whole lot of negative charge on one surface and positive charge on the other. I can't make the move myself with the tweezers. I need to use a device that has another form of energy, which is electrochemical energy, the energy in the batteries. These batteries, what they do for a living is they move charge from one place to another, even though it takes energy to do that. They're able to do work on charges. And they are now pulling positive charges off of the side that is going to accumulate negative charge and stuffing them on the positive side. And it takes them a few seconds to get the job done. And at this point, there is a whole monstrous amount of negative charge on this side and a monstrous amount of positive charge on this side. They're okay with where they are, but they would much rather get together with a screwdriver. You ready? It's a good whop. Yeah. You want to do it again? You know, have you ever wondered how a spot welder works for welding metal? This is how it works. One of my friends in high school had a capacitor not nearly this big and this really expensive battery, 90-volt battery, and I would charge it up and it was consuming his battery really fast, and he eventually got mad at me and said I couldn't do it anymore because of course I couldn't resist. But so we're consuming electrochemical potential energy stored in these batteries by the manufacturer. They're disappearing. The energy's disappearing pretty fast. But we can certainly do a bunch of these. Well, I won't do it. After class, you can come up here and do this, right? Ready? Lion metal. Okay? So that was energy stored in the form of electrostatic potential energy, the energy associated with electric charges. The magnet was energy associated with magnetic poles. Chemical, I used to do firecrackers, but I won't bother. And nuclear, no, I did not. Yeah. In this day and age, you never know. Jeez. Okay? Last thing to point out is that thermal energy it's these things again, but it's just in little pieces, all fragmented. And because of its fragmentation, you can't do with it the same things you can do with these ordered forms of energy. In each case that I was showing you the other things, those are all ordered energies. Energy where you really had giant portions of it all acting together of energy so that you can really get something done. You can do real work. Thermal energy you can't do work with nothing. It's too fragmented. All right? So that's the story of wheels. Just trying, in summary, sort of, wheels allow you to avoid wasting energy as thermal energy, and at the same time they give you interesting things like traction on the road so that you can accelerate, go uphill, and all that stuff. All right, that's wheels. And on to the last of the mechanical, the laws of motion story. Bumper cars. And bumper cars is a great venue in which to watch conserved quantities move around. Energy, for example, moves around during bumper cars. So you can watch one car give energy to the other car and so on. We've already looked at energy, though. It's great, but it's not the whole story. There are two other important conserved quantities that move between cars and bumper cars, and so let's take a look at those. Okay. And as I told you, conserved quantities are very rare. There are three of them to talk about grand total in the laws of motion, and then the next one we'll encounter is electric charge. And we'll be done. That's all the conserved quantities that we have to work with. So playground merry-go-round, again, getting rarer and rarer. If you've ever been on one and you've climbed around on it as it's spinning, you know there's some weird things pulling on you. A lot of it's your own inertia that you're struggling with. But what will happen if you're on the merry-go-round on the outside as it's going round and round, and you pull yourself toward the center? And I hope you've done this and you can, in your mind's eye, can sort of remember that you literally have to pull yourself to the center. It's hard. What will happen to the rate at which the merry-go-round turns? You hear the question? How many think that it will spin faster as you go to the center? How many think it will go slower? How many think that it will spin at the same rate? Okay, the majority of you are going for it will spin faster. And that's the right answer. I don't actually have a merry-go-round to show you. That would be fun to have too. But I'll pretend to be one. And I will be the merry-go-round, and this will be you, these guys. You'll start on the outside, So your friend pushes the thing, getting it moving fast, which I'm doing with my foot. And now what do you think is going to happen when I pull you toward the center? Whoa! Right, it's a skater trick. I hope you can see that it speeds up. I sure can tell. Now, yeah. Oh, he wants to mix nuts. All right. So, the reason for why this is happening has to do with one of the conserved quantities of nature known as angular momentum. And so we'll head off in that direction pretty soon. Before we do that, I'm going to look at these observations a little bit. We'll look at another conserved quantity called momentum. So those of you who've ridden on bumper cars, which I hope is a large fraction of you, you know that moving cars tend to remain moving. Once you get going, it takes a bit of effort to get effort. I'm using it as a fuzzy word, to get going. But once you're going, you tend to keep moving along until you smack into something. And when you smack into it, you can very abruptly stop moving very fast or move much faster or things like that. It's as though you're conveying something to the car you hit. Some aspect of motion, some conserved quantity of motion that you can give to the other car or the other car can give you that will really change how you move translationally. The same thing happens rotationally. If you're spinning, you can transfer some sort of spinning motion to other things. What else? Oh, the fullest cars are the hardest to redirect. If you've got a car that's packed full of people, big people, they're not having much fun in bumper cars because they smack into stuff, but they're barely affected by those impacts. Whereas the little kids riding around in the cars get redirected like crazy. This, alas, is true of motor vehicles as well. A big truck bumping into other things is barely perturbed when it makes a serious change in the motion of a smaller car. In high school, I remember on a school bus encountering a Porsche. We didn't know it was hurt, but those of us in the bus were kind of like, was there a noise? Did you hear something? And the Porsche that we had hit was just like peeled open like a can of sardines. There's no top on the Porsche anymore. People were fine, but it was they were redirected very dramatically. Okay, so the questions I'll go after for bumper cars are: does a moving bumper car carry a force? And that is in tribute to common language, like, I was moving with so much force, whoa, they couldn't stop me. Well, that's just common language. It's gibberish in physics. You do not carry a force with you. You carry something else. Forces are exerted between objects, so you certainly can't carry it. You need the other object. There are forces that act over a distance in space, like the magnet. You saw them, they're going after each other from inches away, right through empty space. But still, the magnet doesn't carry a force with it when it's moving. What you carry with you when you're moving is a conserved quantity in nature known as momentum. And it turns out that forces are involved in moving, in transferring momentum from one object to another. But what it is that you carry is the momentum itself. And so I get that out of the way. I want to show you momentum. And my usual way of doing that is to try not to have too many obstacles or untied shoelaces. Sorry. Okay. Momentum is the conserved quantity of moving, of going somewhere. That's in contrast to energy. Energy is the conserved quantity of doing things. You don't have to be moving to have lots of energy. You could wound up spring, that charged capacitor there. They have the capacity to do something, even though nothing's moving. Momentum, the conserved quantity of moving, is all about moving. You can't hide it. There's no potential form of momentum. It's a conserved quantity of going somewhere in the direction of going somewhere where matters. So momentum is not only a conserved quantity, but it's a vector quantity. It has a direction to it. And momentum one way is different from momentum the other way. So I'll violate the do not stand order here on this guy again. I have 0 momentum right now. I'm not moving. Momentum, it turns out, is proportional to your velocity. So my momentum is proportional to my velocity. And since I've got no velocity, I've got no momentum. To obtain momentum, I need help. I can't create it or destroy it, so I have to obtain it from somewhere else. I'm going to obtain it from the wall. So the wall is going to give me rightward momentum. And again, rightward being the direction of the momentum matters. It's going to give me the momentum. It will lose the momentum, and in principle, it will move the opposite direction of me, but because it's so massive, you'll never notice. But here we go. I'm going to get some momentum out of the wall. And now I've got it, and I am going to give it, ideally, to the other wall, but I'm going to give it, didn't make it. I would say it's a problem with aiming, but these guys don't always go straight. All right, so I'm going to try to get to the other wall. I'm going to get some momentum out of the wall toward the right. Here it comes. I've got it now. I can't stop because I'm carrying the momentum with me. I can't stop until I give it to something else, namely the other wall. And now I'm going to give the wall that, not only all that momentum, but extra, which is a story I'll come to in a minute. And I'm going to end it with momentum the other way. So I'm carrying with me. Can't stop, can't stop. Have to give the momentum away. Oh, and I hit the wall. I hit the sphere. Okay, but in any case, whenever I'm moving, I'm carrying momentum with me. Can you visualize that? It's a real quantity. I'm not carrying a force. The forces were involved in the transverse. When I started over here, the reason I had to shove the wall was because I wanted the wall to shove me. So I push the wall to the left. It pushes me to the right. And it turns out that the transfer of momentum involves force times time. Remember work, the transfer of energy, involves force times distance. This is the transfer of momentum. It involves force times time. So the harder I push and the longer I push, the more momentum is transferred. Now I've got it with me. I'm carrying it. I'm still going to hit the step. Poof! And I gave it away to the step. Force times time. Are you okay with the idea of momentum? And we can do more elaborate ones where we can have 2 people up here on cards. Now if I ran into one person, moving along with my momentum, I could give them my momentum. I would maybe come to a stop, and they would then continue on. So it is really passed along between things. And it's a major part of the game of bumper cars, is the transferring of momentum. Yeah. Good. Yes. So when I pushed off, the question is really when I pushed off, there were forces in both directions. Do they add to 0? The momentum transfers add to 0. And the answer is yes. I'll skip the cart. I'll just push on the wall. When I push on the wall, my force on the wall times the time over which I push is how much momentum I give to the wall. And it's toward the left, because I'm going to push the wall toward the left. So maybe it's 10 units of force for 10 seconds, or 10 newtons. 10 newtons for 10 seconds is 10 times 10, 100 newton seconds. That's a unit of momentum. So I transfer 100 units of momentum to the left of the wall. You okay with that? At the same time, the wall pushes back equally hard on me. That's Newton's third law. It also does it for 10 seconds. I get pushed on for 10 newtons for 10 seconds to the right. I now have momentum. The sum of the momentum overall, given to me and given to the wall, those two, sums to 0. We didn't make any momentum or destroy it. We just redistributed it. The wall's got some to the left, I got some to the right. And this, incidentally, is how rocket propulsion works. If I have a whole box of junk I'm holding on to, and I start throwing the junk that way as fast as I can, it carries leftward momentum away with it, because I had to push it to the left as it moves to the left. As time goes by. So I give the junk leftward momentum. At the same time, it gives me rightward momentum to compensate, and off I go. And that's what a rocket does. It's just throwing junk down. It happens to be burning fuel, but as it throws the fuel down really fast, the fuel pushes up, and the rocket goes off. So it's action and reaction. The rocket is pushing not against the floor, ground, anything. It's pushing against its own fuel as it throws the fuel down. Okay? In bumper cars, then the story of momentum in bumper cars is pretty simple. To get rid of friction, I got a little toy air hockey table, which just introduces a layer of air on which these pucks can pretty much move without friction. And if that's your friend sitting there minding your friend's own business, and this is you, and you start running your engine to go faster and faster and faster, and then you smack into your friend, you transfer during that impact. Boom! You transfer momentum. You had momentum because you're moving to the right. You hit your friend, and the impact conveyed your momentum or some portion of your momentum to your friend. So that's why you get these motions where one person stops, the other person sort of takes over the motion. This is true not only in air hockey, obviously. It's true not only in bumper cars, but in billiards and pool. Have you ever played those? When the balls hit each other, they have this tendency to almost, one ball comes in, hits the other one. It's like it moves, it's some conserved quantity of motion from one ball to the other. It is. It's moving momentum from one ball to the other. If the two balls are identical, this works perfectly. Same with bumper cars. Two bumper cars with people that are of the same mass can have this kind of motion where one's motionless and they get hit by one that's moving, and the one that was moving stops, and the one that was not moving continues in the path of the first one. If they're mismatched, if you've got the little kids and the big, I call them couch potatoes in the book, trying to be politically correct. There's no defense of couch potatoes organization. So if the couch potatoes hit the little kid, they just swat the little kid right off, bang, right off the rink, whatever it's called, and they don't even stop very much because they give a huge dose of momentum to the little kid, and yet they still have lots of forward momentum left. They keep going. This is reminiscent of, well, when you're driving down the road and you hit a bug, and it hits your windshield. Bugs usually don't bounce very well, but if they did, they would be swatted off at very high speed, and you would barely notice anything happen because you got so much forward momentum, you just keep on going. On the other hand, if the couch potato is sitting there and the little kid comes up and hits the couch potato, the kid bounces backwards. They give the couch potato so much momentum that they actually run a net deficit of forward momentum. They end up with backward momentum, which is a story I'll have to tell you on Wednesday. So we'll finish talking about the behavior of momentum, and then we'll go on to angular momentum.